Winchester Archive, the Supernatural podcast. I'm Ed, and today we'll be discussing Season 1, Episode 9, Home. But before we begin, first of all, I want to say sorry about the delay between episodes and all that. Right after we dealt with the other medical issue that we were having last time there was a break there, I got to have a medical issue and had to take a couple of weeks of break there to recover. So yay. But I'm recovered. I should be good to go. So we should be getting back to a more regular schedule with this. So thank you for your patience and your continued support through this. We really enjoy this. We really want to keep doing this, but stuff happened. But before we begin, as always, as a quick spoiler warning, we'll be connecting dots from across the entire series. And if you're watching Supernatural for the first time or haven't finished the series, consider this your heads up. We will be talking a lot, mostly about the end of the series, tying things together. So also, before we begin, explicit content warning, we are adults talking about an adult show that deals with dark and sensitive topics, so expect adult language, mature discussion, and dark humor sometimes. So with all that said, Brooke, take it away.
All right. So this episode's air date is November 15th, 2005. It was written by Eric Kripke and directed by Ken Garotti. The supporting cast is Loretta Devine as Missouri Mosley and Kristen Richardson as Jenny. So our synopsis here for this episode is Sam has a nightmare that is actually a prophetic dream about the new occupants of their childhood home where Mary died. The boys go back to investigate what is happening there. They find a psychic that helped their father realize what supernatural beings run among them. They figure out what is in the house. Mary makes a guest appearance. They all stop the evil in there. We find out that John was around the entire time and never stopped to say hello to his children who desperately want his help.
What a dick.
So, with all of that said, you can listen to us on all major podcast platforms and watch along on YouTube. And if you'd like to support our show, you can head over to Patreon at patreon.com/winchesterarchivespodcast. There are a ton of perks from our Discord community to monthly digital art to bonus episodes titled The Archive Addendum.
And as always, we are accepting stories for our field research episodes that we intend to do. And all these bonus episodes I promised you we'll get to. It's just life is busy lately. So until people start wanting them, we might need to, we'll get to them eventually. So keep that in mind. But we like to share our stories from our listeners for these episodes. So if you have any hometown legends, ghost hunting stories, cryptid encounters, or anything else from your supernatural life, send them our way at winchesterarchivespodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram and TikTok at Winchester Archives Pod. Also, you can rate our podcast on whatever platform you listen on. It really helps get our episodes out to more people to help keep expanding our community of archivists. And now, with all the logistics out of the way, let's get into the episode breakdown.
Yes. The first thing I noticed is the recap of this episode had scenes and dialogue that were not in the pilot.
Really? I didn't notice that.
Yeah, there was like some talk between like Child Dean and John, and like I didn't write down the exact details, but I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that is neat.
Kind of inconsistent, but it's fine. And then as soon as the recap is over, we see a woman looking at a wedding photo and she looked happy, but also like reminiscing about her wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Then she's interrupted by her daughter who says something is in her closet. So the mom goes up to her room and opens up the closet. And she says, like, there's nothing in there. But the way the camera angle is in the closet and the music in the background say
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, there is something in
Yeah.
there.
It really has like the point of view of like you are the monster in the closet watching them say this. Which
Yeah.
is I thought was a really cool shot.
No, it really is. I love it. The girl says she doesn't like the house. And
Mhm.
the mom does what parents do, and she said she's not used to it yet, but they'll all be happy here. And then as the mom's about to leave the room, the daughter prompts her to move the chair in front of the closet door. So my thoughts here is like, okay, but at what point are you as a parent thinking there might be more to what your child is saying? Like a
Yeah.
fear of nighttime is a real thing, right? Because our brains like make stuff up. But if your child, to me, is like adamant there's something in their closet and they even want a chair to block the door. Like, wouldn't you want to think that they might be telling the truth?
Yeah, I understand it though, but also, like, I understand that impulse, but I also understand the impulse of just, like, your kids probably just having, like, their mind like, imagination run wild because you just went into the closet, nothing was there. So it's like, you gotta, like, in reality still you gotta live in reality to some extent too, like, right? Is there really gonna be something in there? Who knows? But, yeah, if my kids started saying that stuff to me, I would definitely be checking it out, and then if they continued to say it, I'd probably try to figure out if there was anything else going on too. But I definitely if it was all just, like, supernatural, scared of the dark stuff, like, we have an instinctual fear of the dark, so it also makes sense that you would have like, that's what happens. That's why kids have that, like, a whole common trope of, like, things in the closet, things in the dark, things under the bed.
Yeah, I get it. I just want parents to believe their children more. That a lot of
Oh,
these,
for sure.
scary stories wouldn't happen if parents believed their children.
Yeah, because there might be just someone in the attic that goes into the kid's room or some shit. That's what things that have happened before. So, like,
Yes, check out, r/no sleep if you want, stories like that because 'cause they're on there. So now we go back down to the mom who is unpacking more, and she hears, like, scattering under the floor. And what I thought was super funny is she says, like, "God, please make sure it's not rats."
yeah,
And
I
it's
got a kick out of that because of, like, the whole this is literally God's story thing. I always just it amuses me whenever anything like referencing God happens now because it's like, yeah, God's like, "Ha, I got you. It's not rats."
it's definitely not rats, but it is something else that might
Yeah,
be
it's like
worse than
something like
rats.
scurrying or tapping or scratching on the floor, something like that.
Yes, now we go back up to the girl's room, and the chair moves out of the way, and the closet door opens,
Hell no, I'd be running out of that room if I was that girl.
right? Same. But then we go back down to the mom in the basement, and she actually finds a box with some of Sam and Dean's, like, memories,
Mhm.
and that's very cute to see, and it makes me think of episode 1 when I was like, "It has to be a continuity error that Sam has this picture of his parents because the house burned down."
Mhm.
Obviously, some of their stuff made it.
Yeah, and also later on in the beginning here, when we jumped over to the brothers, he does say, like, the house hasn't didn't burn down completely. Like, he makes a point to say that too. So, like, they, like, burned down partially and rebuilt it.
I wonder if that was like a retcon.
Maybe.
But then we go back to the girls' room, and now there are flames in the closet, and she screams.
Yeah, obviously. 'Cause if anyone saw that, they should be screaming. Um, I did some research on this, and it's a very common thing, in folklore, basically all over the world, of children talking about monsters under their bed or in the closet or things like that. They all, like, kinda tie back to a similar like, the similar mythical creature story of the boogeyman, which basically has, like, no description. It's kinda, like, depends on the area and depends on what you wanna call the boogeyman. But it ties back to, like I said before, the inherent fear of the dark and the unknown. And a lot of these monstrous descriptions of, like, a boogeyman or a thing in the closet under the bed, whatever, have, like, more bestial features. So I would take it as more of, like, an instinctual fear of, like, what's lurking in the dark from when we lived outside mostly or, like, lived in, like, less secure environments where, like, you don't know what predators are lurking. So, like, you have to be constantly aware of that, right? And that kind of being a lingering of that. It also is interesting because it tends to be, like, associated with, like, not necessarily a punishment of children, but, like, a way to, like, scare the kids into being better, right? You say, "Be good or else the boogeyman might come get you," or whatever. Or similar to, like, the Krampus myths where he might come and, like, take you away if you're bad. But I didn't find any myths really regarding any spirits appearing as, like, full body flaming spirits. Like, the closest thing I could find was, like, things like the will-o-wisps, which are, like Nordic folklore, like, Irish folklore, I believe, or Celtic folklore of, like, these little, like, flaming spirits that kinda, like, go around outside, but they're, like, more like little lantern lights or little, like, candle lights, not really, like, full body flaming spirits.
Yes. They talk about, the will-o-wisp in the movie Brave, the Disney
Mhm.
movie. But yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't heard of full body fire spirits
Yeah, it doesn't
either.
seem to be like a real like, again, if I'm wrong, please in the comments, let me know if you've heard of any stories like this, but I couldn't find any.
You know, the boogeyman being like a monster thing is so true because, we always think like a hand is gonna come up or something.
Yeah.
or like you have to have your feet covered because if one leg's out, they're gonna pull it. And it's just so interesting because we do like think of that stuff on our own,
Yeah.
like without any outside influence
That's why,
usually.
like, it's either real or it's like a tie back, like I said, I think it's more of like an instinctual over like, something that's remnant from our hunter-gatherer days, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, that's very true. We have very good instincts usually. So now we're going back to our brothers. Sam is woken up from a dream of the mother we just saw banging on a window from the house screaming for help. Now, Dean is naming off potential places for them to go for their next gig, but Sam isn't really paying attention. He's just drawing a tree over and over. And also, I just want to say they look so young in this episode. I don't
But
know what
yeah.
it is, but when I was watching this, I'm like, they look younger in this episode than like all the other ones.
I wonder if it was filmed earlier in the season and just, like, put here or something. But, yeah, they definitely do look like babies still. One thing I found amusing, like, Dean naming, like, the things that were happening, one of them, he's like, "This guy shot himself in the head 3 times," and I'm like, "What the hell?" Like, yeah, that sounds like something up your alley. Because what?
Yeah, it's like
How does someone manage that 3 times?
Like, after you go home, you should probably go to that
Yeah,
to see what happened.
because like, that's nuts.
Sam now tells Dean they need to go home back to Kansas. And then Sam tells him he thinks the people who are living there now might be in danger because of his dream. And we do the formula of Dean not knowing if they should go there. Like, it might not be worth investigating. But we know he really doesn't want to go back because of the bad memories and the grief. But, they do actually end up going back to help this family.
Yeah, he even says as much too, because he's like, "I promised myself I'd never go back." I did look into this too because this is actually like a thing that has been around for a while in folklore, which is the divination using dreams. So, like, basically, dreams as like a way to predict or interpret the future or foretell the future. A thing called a neuromancy, and it's basically a practice that's been all through ancient times, all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia, where like kings even paid close enough attention to like act on those dreams. Like there one king that rebuilt a temple because he had a dream that he should, so he did.
Mhm,
And then like even ancient Egypt and like the Greeks and Romans also had these kind of things where they read dreams and interpret them in different ways to try and predict the future. And even like the Bible, which in this case for this series is very relevant, God delivered messages often through dreams. So it seems to be a very good, a very common calling card for God. So this would make sense in terms of
mhm.
the in the canon of this series too, which I found amusing.
Yes, so you wanna know
Makes his psychic dreams make
something
a little more sense, not just a lot of left field.
something that is super interesting about Sam's dreams is this is the only dream/vision he has that is not tied to a demon. Like, all the ones with Jess had to do with the Zazel, and all the ones he has the rest of the whole series are because he, like, drank the demon blood, and they tie back to a specific demon. This one is kind of left field, and it never happens again.
That's
The
funny.
the only stretch you can make is because it's happening in their childhood home, so maybe Azazel wanted him to go back there, but it's like, it's not explained.
Yeah, or it could be like, since Azazel was the one there that caused the Mary's death and stuff. You know, it might be like that's why it can do it. But yeah,
Mhm.
that makes sense. That's interesting. I was not aware of that.
Yeah. I saw that in my research, and I was like, "Oh," kind of a dropped plot point, I guess.
Yeah.
And then okay, so I had a thought because we see the house that they're in, and I'm like, maybe I need to watch the pilot again, but I feel like their home was not in a neighborhood. Like, I thought it was more shown, like, on a hill and, like, secluded, not
I don't
like
recall, yeah.
I do not recall it being on a street with neighbors, like, right next door to them.
We'll have to rewatch the beginning of the pilot and talk about it next episode, see where we are, see if we think it's a retcon or not. Well, it's also been like what, like 10 years? Maybe it was more secluded 10 years ago and they built a neighborhood around it. You know,
Been
that's
more than
also a
10 years.
possibility. Yeah, so that's also a possibility too. Like they continued making houses nearby, and now it has neighbors later, like right next door. So it could work in canon too.
Yeah, that's fair. So now they walk up to the house, and Dean starts saying they're federal agents, but Sam cuts him off and says their names and that they used to live there and wanted to see the house while they were passing through. And amazingly enough, this single woman with 2 children lets them inside because she found their old stuff.
See, like it makes some sense just because of like she just found their stuff, but also still, it was still like, oh, you just met these people and just assuming they're like cool. And letting them into your house with your 2 small children. One thing I did find amusing too with this whole, like, him telling the truth and cutting Dean off, it reminded me of, like, the last episode or the last episode is Bugs, where they were like, the one guy they went to talk to about, like, what happened on that land, where he was just like, "You're a liar," and then it's like, "I like him because he tells the truth," and it's like, well, kinda at least that's, like, a connected through line, I guess, between these episodes.
Yeah, because even, like, the psychic says stuff like that too.
Yeah, like, calls out Dean.
Yeah, but then this mom, they walk into a room, and then she's like, "This is my daughter, Sari, and her brother, Richie."
Who is a
Cool.
juice fiend.
Yes, he loves juice.
And it's so cute because the kid's just sitting there saying, "Juice, juice," and I'm like, "Ah, so cute."
The mom tells them they needed a fresh start, and Sam says, like, "How are you liking it?" And she's like, "Well, not to badmouth your childhood home, but it has some issues."
Yeah, just, like, then rattles off, like, 7 things that are wrong with it.
Yes. Okay. She says, like, the lights flicker every hour on the hour. That would
Crazy.
automatically make me think ghost. I would not think there's something wrong with the electric.
Well, I would assume faulty wiring at first, but then, like, every
On the
hour on the hour is kinda weird.
Yes. The sink keeps getting backed up, and then there are rats in the basement. Rats she's never seen, which Dean
Mhm.
asks if she's seen them, and she's like, "No, but I just hear them."
Here, there's a scratching specifically.
Yes. And then Sari asks if it was here when they lived here. And the mom insists she's dreaming, but she says she was awake and the thing in her
Mhm.
closet was on fire.
Yup.
So my thought here is even if this is disappearing when she gets up there after her kid is screaming,
Mhm.
wouldn't she be confused about the chair being moved and the door wide open? Like, would she be
Yeah.
thinking her kid moved it, opened the door, got back in bed, and screamed?
Yeah. Like, I would immediately be like, "Hey, did you do this?" And when they tell me inevitably no, then I'd be like, okay, you're coming into this room with you're in the mom's room, locking her in there, like basically like stay in there, close the door, and then go in that room with like every light on and being like, where is there some like hole in the wall that someone's coming in and fucking with my kid? Because like, how does it happen? Unless like your kid has a history of sleepwalking to like, you know, or something like that. But like, that's just weird. Like, that would freak me
Mhm.
out.
Yes, I would be freaked out too, and, like, I feel like you would know if your kid is lying.
Well, also, like, why would they be screaming blood? Like, are they just playing a prank on you? Like, that doesn't make any sense, and especially because she's, like,
Mhm.
so little. Like, she's not old enough to, like, make an elaborate enough prank to be like, "I'm going to go do this," and then scream, and then make my mom come up here and be all worried about me. Like, ha ha? Like, I don't understand the intention of that because she doesn't seem like a neglected kid that needs attention or anything, you know?
Mhm. Yes,
But, like, that would
exactly.
freak me out a lot.
Me too, for sure. So now they're leaving the house, and Sam went from 0 to 10. He
Mhm.
is yelling. Everybody in the neighborhood can hear him
Mhm.
about how there's figures on fire, scratching the lights. He says it's a malevolent spirit. Dean says he's freaked out about Sam's dreams coming true, and Sam is like, "Well, forget about that. We need to figure out what's happening in this house." And they also didn't leave with their box of stuff.
Yeah. Which is kinda funny they didn't grab the box, at least on the way out. But yeah, with this too, like, basically everything that was, like, asked about and the talked about, like the, scratching, the lights flickering, the sink backing up, they're all things that actually are very closely associated with poltergeist, which is a German word that means rumbling ghost or noisy spirit. because and the reason why they're called that is because they're typically a type of spirit that is associated with directly interacting with the physical world by moving stuff around or causing disturbances such as noises like scratching on the walls and floors. So they have a propensity to start random fires and have foul odors and flickering lights coming around them, which is like, again, all of these things are referenced here. Granted, the full body flaming apparition, not quite a poltergeist, not like poltergeist activity, but like random fire is. So just from like the initial description, my first thought, just like the boys, was like, hey, this is probably a poltergeist based on all these things. And the funny thing about this too is just like the monster under the bed and like the scare of the closet, those kind of things being from all around the world. Reports of poltergeist activity also range all over the world, from like Brazil and the U.S. to most European countries, and all the way to like Japan and Australia. Literally across the globe, there's poltergeist activity like reported, which is interesting.
Yeah, that really is creepy
Hmm.
in that it happens.
Oh yeah, hate it. Granted, most of like the things that I saw, like people like either chalk it up to like hoaxes or like misunderstanding like natural phenomenon or like stuff like that. But like, it's still kind of wild that they're reported everywhere as like these like scary ghost things. So who knows?
Yeah, exactly. So Dean says I need to calm down and treat this like any other job. So
Which is
Sam,
fair.
yes. And Sam says they need to look into the history of the house, to which Dean says they already know the history. So I'm thinking, like, were they the first owners of this home? It looked like an old house, so I doubt it. They know their mom died there, but is that the only history of the house?
Yeah, I think they're just assuming they know what the traumatic event that caused a haunting is.
Yes. And Sam asked Dean what he remembers about that night. And Dean says, about the fire. Then he says he carried Sam out the door, and Sam is like confused. And I find it unbelievable that Sam never knew Dean carried him out of the house because that is like a key part of this story. And then Dean even says, like, dad's story as well as mine. And I'm like, you're saying for like 23 years they left out, like both of them purposely left out that Dean carried Sam out the door
I also just don't see how that's an important piece of the story either, to be fair.
because the camera zooms in right on them and he says, "Go, Dean, go," and hands him your brother and like says, "Tell
Yeah,
him
but
to
I'm
look
saying,
at it."
like, to tell Sam is what I mean. Like, is that really, like, that relevant that Dean brought him out of the house? Eh,
I feel like he would have heard it before.
no, for sure. I think it is weird that we never heard it before, but it's also like, it's not that big a deal, I don't think.
We also find out that John never told them what he thought killed their mom, which I also think is super weird.
I would think that's super weird, except for his whole, like, radio silence and ghosting them thing is also pretty on brand with not telling them anything. So,
Yeah. Well, so
especially at the end of the episode, spoilers for the end of the episode in, like, 10 minutes when we talk about it. It's still, like, all a similar kind of vibe where it's like, "I don't wanna talk to them until I know what happened." Like, okay. It's the same kinda thing with this, I feel like, where it's like, they just probably never talked to him about it because he's weird. Grey's Anatomy, specifically.
yes. True. True.
Uh,
So yeah, they have no idea what they're looking for. They're gonna do everything they usually do, like talking to neighbors and friends.
yeah, and also people who don't get the joke for that, that's something me and, Brooke discussed quite a bit, out in, like, our free time too, that apparently a lot of the actors in this original season ended up going and working for Grey's Anatomy after shooting the first season, so that's why a lot of these stories had to be kind of changed a little bit,
Yep. They came out the same year, so I
and,
mean
like,
it
one of
makes
them is
sense.
John, and then one of them was, the lady we'll see, here in a moment.
So Dean says he's going to the bathroom, but he's actually calling his dad. He
Mhm.
gives dad the recap, but also says he doesn't know what to do and he wants them to come he wants him to come to them, like basically begging him at this
Yeah, it
point.
sounded really sad, like, the way he was doing it was like he was on the verge of tears even.
Mhm. And something people like to point out is a potential continuity error. So Dean has another new number, and that new number is on John's voicemail, which would mean they've had contact since the Phantom Traveler episode, because that's when Dean last had a new phone number on screen anyway. 'cause he said, like, he asked the guy in Phantom Traveler, like, "How'd you get my number? I haven't had it in a while." But I'm thinking, like, hasn't it been established that they have multiple phones? Like, maybe they
Mhm.
cycle through cell phones, so John knows to, like, update his voicemail?
Yeah.
The
I think it could be, also just, like, one of his other numbers too, or, like, somehow he's keeping track on the boys and find out his new number somehow, you know what I mean? Like,
True, or, like, maybe they have, like, talked a little,
it's heavily implied they haven't though, like, at all.
or maybe he called his dad and said, like, "Hey, dad, this is my new number."
Yeah, he coulda done that, like, or just called him from the new number.
I don't know, a lot of things could have happened, but people pointed
Yeah.
out because when you hear John's voicemail, it says, like, "Call my son Dean at this number," and it changes.
Mhm.
So now we see, Jenny, who is the mom, hired someone to fix the sink. And when he's left alone, the toy monkey starts going off by itself, like slapping the cymbals together.
Yeah, the second that happened, if I'm this guy that's working on the sink, I'm taking that toy and putting it in another room. I'm not having that monkey with cymbals, staring at me, going off as I'm playing with the garbage disposal. I'm sorry. I've seen way too
Mhm,
many horror movies to be like, "Nah, we're not doing that."
mhm.
Also,
Uh,
I've seen Toy Story 3 or whatever it was that also includes a crazy monkey that's just like, "Nah, we're not doing that monkey."
I already I hate this scene on my rewatch. I do skip it because there's no point because I hate it so much. But
Mhm.
he
It's
makes
just full of anxiety.
yes, he makes sure the garbage disposal is off, and then he sticks his hand down the sink, and the camera keeps panning back to the monkey and panning to him and back to the monkey and then to him.
We all know what's gonna happen. Like, literally, the second he puts his hand in the sink, everyone and their grandmother's like, "I know what's gonna happen, and I hate it because I know exactly what's gonna happen. I just don't know when."
Yeah. The disposal turns on, and we actually see his blood draining from under the sink, which was, like, so much. That
Yeah. Yeah, it
um,
basically, as his hand is in there, it turns back on and, like, cuts him, and then he hits something metal, and he's like, "Ooh, what is that?" Pulls his hand out, nothing happens. It's like the whole fake out thing, and then he puts it back in, and then it turns on and goes off, and, like, the monkey starts freaking out as blood just pouring out of the sink, which is, like, I think way too much blood for a hand.
people say this is a continuity error. This is not me saying it's a continuity error, but it's not just for this, but for literally every single horror movie ever that uses this trope. It's a continuity error. Garbage disposals use centrifugal force to, like it's like a grinding plate to grind up the food. It doesn't use blades.
Mhm.
So a hand would get damaged, but it wouldn't be as damaged as these horror tropes make it out to be.
Yeah, I wouldn't be putting your hand in a blender and a fountain of blood pouring out of the sink like it showed in this episode.
Mhm.
It'd be, like, damaged for sure, probably need to go to the hospital, but, like, not shred your hand to pieces.
Yeah, like the bones might be broken, maybe some cuts. Centrifugal force is also very hard for my brain to understand because it's not real, but it is real. It's weird. Um, but yeah, that that's that. So now every time you see a horror film that has that happening, you can know that that would not happen in real life. It wouldn't be fun in real life, but it wouldn't happen that way.
Like I said, wouldn't be a you lose a hand completely.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So now after that happens, we go back to the boys and they're at an auto shop and they're talking about the guy who owned the auto shop with John. Okay. I guess John was a mechanic. That's
Mhm.
something we find out about him. But this time they're pretending to be a cop. Apparently, John didn't just move him and the kids, he like fully disappeared with his children.
I mean, on brand for how crazy this guy seems.
And because as cops, they're like, we're just looking into the disappearance of the Winchesters. So, like, what did you know about them? And it's like,
Mhm.
there's a house fire, and then they disappeared, but not right away because apparently they lived there for a little longer.
Yeah.
Because this guy says that John ended up talking to him about what happened. So it's just confusing.
Mhm.
But he says John was stubborn, he hated to lose, but he loved Mary and the kid. And yeah, this is where we figure out he stayed a little after the fire. I thought they left the night of, but no.
Yeah,
This
they probably must have stayed in town or something.
The guy says he ended up talking to him about it, and he would tell people that something caused the fire to kill Mary, and he,
Mhm.
like, begged John to, like, go to therapy to
Yeah.
process the loss, but instead he started reading strange books and going to palm readers.
Started to go into psychics and stuff because instead and learn reading esoteric books instead of getting help.
Mhm. Which is what you would do.
Yeah, probably. More folklore.
So, Sam is now looking for palm readers and a phone book because I guess those still existed when this episode came out.
Mhm.
And he says there's a Missouri Mosley, and Dean recognizes something from John's journal. The very first sentence is, I went to Missouri and learned the truth.
Which is, like, the most vague thing ever to put in your journal. Like
That's an ADHD note.
Yes,
It's like, why did I go to Missouri and what truth did I learn?
yes. As someone with ADHD, I have plenty of those notes written around everywhere.
Like, Dean thought it meant the state, but
Yeah,
now
I would've too.
but he's like, maybe it's the psychic.
Mhm.
And then we go to the psychic, and she's shown putting a like, she's walking a guy out, and she's like, "Don't worry, your wife loves you." And then she turns to them and she goes, "No, his wife is, like, banging the gardener or something."
Which is wild.
Yes, and
And they're like, "Why did you not tell him the truth?"
yeah, and she says, "People don't come to psychics for the truth, they come for good news."
Which is fair.
Yes, I'm like, we're both as people who give, like, tarot readings or card readings or, like, how you do Reiki, that is very true. People come to, like, the metaphysical for last resort, and they want to hear good news. They're not coming to metaphysical spaces for reality.
Yeah, but that's always the thing you do. Sometimes the truth hurts, but you gotta tell them the truth.
But yeah, if somebody asks me for a tarot reading, I'm telling them what is being said.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change it. That gives, like, scam vibes.
That exactly. That's why, like, when she said that, I'm like, "I don't agree with that, but alright." Like, I agree they come with for good they do come for good news, but they also need to hear the truth. You can't just be like, "Oh, no, your wife loves you," even though, like, every card says, like, "Nah, nah, she doesn't."
Well, this is how the metaphysical occult space has changed within the last 20 years.
True.
Yes. Well, obviously, the kids are not the kids, the brothers are skeptical
Mhm.
because they read John went there and learned the truth. So they're like,
Yeah.
what? Either
What
way,
what truth did you tell him?
right? But either way, they go back with her, and she touches Sam and immediately says she's sorry about his girlfriend and the missing father.
Yeah. Just wild.
And Dean questions her abilities because she doesn't know where John is, and she says she can't pull facts out of thin air. She reads energy, and then she also says she reads thoughts.
Which is wild too.
Yes, it is. They sit down, and she says, "Boy, if you put your foot on my coffee table, I will whack you with the spoon." And
Which I
Dean
love. I love her banter with Dean specifically, and this episode makes me very
yes.
happy.
And Dean says, "I didn't do anything." And she's like, "Yeah, well, you were thinking about it." And Dean
Mhm.
was definitely thinking about it.
Yeah, his face is just like, "What the hell?" Like, I was, but, like, damn.
And Sam asked when she met John, and she said after the fire, and she told him what was really out there, like, she pulled back the curtains.
Mhm.
It makes me wonder what he asked her to make her tell him the truth,
Yeah.
and she knows a little bit about what killed Mary because she went to the house,
Mhm.
but she doesn't know what it was, she just knows that it was evil.
Yeah.
Evil?
Evil. Um generally, like, kinda like we were talking about on our little side tangent there, generally in folklore and in, like, the modern metaphysical spaces of this stuff, psychics are not really how they appear in this episode, like, at all. Um, with it where she's quite literally knowing things the boys are about to say or do, or that she's, like, literally reading their minds and seeing the future, or, like, reading things about, like, Sam, like knowing Sam has these things happening, like that's not really what's going on. In reality, they're basically people using things like tarot cards or like I was saying before, using dream interpretation or like other forms of divination, which is just like trying to interpret things that come up and make them apply to people's lives and give them some kind of meaning to them or like, some advice. It's not really like oh, here's a psychic reading and here's exactly the truth and what's happening. It's like, this is what this says. Does that mean anything? Like, here's some advice on like, person to person. Here's some advice on like what I would do or how this, looks, stuff like that, which is more in line with what she's saying about people coming to them for like good news, but also like, again, we said before, not necessarily you gotta, if you're doing that kind of stuff, you still got to give them the truth, whether it's good news or not of what is showing up, if you put any stock into it at all. But it's kind of like more like the how oracles in ancient Greece or who interpreted signs and visions that they were given as advice to people who seek them out.
Mhm.
It's more of just like advice based on what they are interpreting things as versus like I can read your mind and like know exactly what you're gonna do before you do it. Like, that's not
Yes.
real.
No, it's definitely not. Like, I understand the, like, reading energy. It's like, if she's around Sam, she might be able to feel that he is sad and, like, has a lot
Yeah.
of grief, but, like, you wouldn't know why. You could just
Yeah,
be
you
like,
wouldn't be able to be like, "Oh, sorry about your girlfriend who died and your father who's missing." Like
yes, it would be like, you feel sad, like, "What's going on? Do you wanna talk about
Yeah,
it?"
exactly.
So now we go back to Jenny, who was on the phone saying she shouldn't be held liable for that man's hand getting bladed off, which honestly, I agree.
Yeah, that is what insurance is for.
Right. And she didn't turn the power on. I feel like
Yeah,
any person like in plumbing or electricity, whatever, should know that you need to turn the power off before you stick your hand in places like that.
and also I'm pretty sure you don't just stick your hand down a garbage disposal even when it's off. Like, I'm pretty sure that's not you usually go up from under it, usually, I believe.
Like you
I
go
could be
out.
wrong on this. Again, plumbers, let me know in the comments. But yeah.
I mean, he did check to make sure it wasn't on,
Yeah,
so maybe he did turn off the power, but, like, it's not her fault.
yeah.
But she does say she can't afford a lawyer because apparently the
Mhm.
person on the other side said to get a lawyer.
Yeah, because also she said that she's been between jobs to the boys earlier,
Yes. So she's obviously very stressed, and then she hears glass break, so she hangs up the phone and goes to investigate.
as you do.
Now we're back to the boys, and they tell the psychic something is back at the house. And she says she doesn't understand because it's been quiet there. Like she goes and checks up on it every once in a while. And nothing has happened since they left. So she doesn't understand why it's happening now. And Sam says he doesn't think it's a coincidence because of Jess dying and their dad going missing and now the house.
Yeah, seems like a lot of weird things tying up with them.
Yeah. Now we're back to the house, and Richie's playpen comes apart, like, just the side falls off,
Mhm.
and then the fridge open, and remember, he loves juice, so naturally, he's like, "Might as well go get some juice,"
Mhm.
and he full on climbs into the entire fridge because there's a perfect little spot for him just to sit
Yeah,
there, and the fridge shuts, and the little outside childproof locking locks. But then the mom comes back and
and missing child freaking out.
yes, and then she sees milk coming out of the fridge, so she opens it and he's in there. But this is
Mhm.
a fun little fact. So when she goes to unlock the fridge on from the outside, it's not actually locked, but the actress makes the unlocking motion anyway. So it's hard to tell that the child safety thing wasn't on.
Yeah, I actually noticed this because I read your notes before I rewatched the episode before we recorded this. Because peeling back the curtain a little, I wrote my notes and, like or, like, looked it up, like, and watched this episode, like, 2 weeks ago before I had my medical issue. So, like, I rewatched the episode before we recorded today, and I was like, "I'm gonna keep an eye out for this." And I noticed that actually the shot before this where the kid gets locked in and they do, like, show the child lock locking, when it zooms out on the fridge, the child lock is unlocked again.
Mhm.
And then, when the mom comes up to it, it's also unlocked. I see her, like, she does a great job sleight of handing it to like up there to pretending like it's in there and then like undoing it. But like noticed it too, and I was like, "That's funny." I'd never noticed it until I know to look for it.
Yes, exactly. It makes me wonder, like, why she as, like, the actress couldn't say, like, "Hey, this wasn't right." Like, "Let's
So
redo
it
it."
might not have mattered, but also it probably was like a reshoot. Like they did a shot of it and it like didn't come out right, so they just like reset and they just forgot to put the lock back on. So she just kind of like did the thing and like they just
Yeah.
went with it. Because like again, you don't notice it, like, and especially in the shot before, even when they zoom out of the thing, I never thought to look at the child lock. I was just like, I saw it locked, so it's locked. Like your brain just like fills those gaps in to the point where you probably just don't notice it unless you know to look for it. But it's just interesting when they see that. I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Alright, so now the boys are back at the house, and they took the psychic there. And Jenny is like, "I don't know if you should come in because, like, obviously, it's been a stressful day."
Yeah.
Um, but the psychic talks her into letting them in.
Yeah, she's just like, "I think you know what we're talking about," like, very, like, ominously.
Mhm. Like, she says, like, "You think you know something's trying to hurt your family or something."
Yeah, like, yeah, and she's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." She's like, "I think you do know what we're talking."
It seems very threatening.
Yeah.
So they go upstairs into the kids' room. There they see the fire person in the closet, and she's like, "Sam, this used to be your nursery."
Yeah, so this is where it all is taking place, the epicenter.
And then Missouri calls Dean an amateur for bringing out an EMF detector.
And I like Sam Dean just kinda, like, rolls his eyes like, "Rude."
I know everybody is always hating on his EMF detectors.
I know, right? Like, he's making these things out of, like, junk. Give him some
Yes.
credit.
Well, now Missouri says she can feel the energy, and it's something different than what took their mom. And
Mhm.
it's not an it, it's a them. So there's
Dun, dun,
those
dun.
two things.
Mhm.
And they are there because of what happened to their family. Because evil walked the house, which means it opened a portal for paranormal energy. And she believes it attracted a poltergeist. And she can't make out the second spirit, but she knows they need to stop the poltergeist.
Yeah, I like the wording she uses, very, like, poetic. She's like, "Evil can leave wounds, and then those wounds can get infected," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's a cool way to look at it." Um, but yeah, this is another thing that's, a kind of a common thing in folklore and in paranormal things, is like a idea of a portal, which is basically a part of the world that the physical world that is, connected to the spiritual world or other dimensions or whatever you wanna call it. And basically there's like a rip in that fabric of reality that
Mhm.
allows spirits or other entities to travel from one place to another or one realm to another. Um, and they're heavily commonly associated with heavily haunted places. Like if you have like, like a haunted asylum or haunted prisons, like those things are tend to be referred to as like portals because like there's a lot of activity and spirits going on. Um, but yeah, they usually are associated with places with have like a lot of negative energy, negative or traumatic events or deaths happening there. And it's basically a weakening of that energetic fabric that allows like almost like a tear or a hole for spirits to linger around and move through there. That's what people usually think of as portals in folklore. And they're like, again, it's a very common thing of like just like a high energy density place like that. Like a bunch of negative things happen. Usually people have like weird feelings there. Granted, that's probably again us just kind of picking up on like and knowing history and being like, this is a bad place, but like that's just a way to look at it through that lens, which I thought was a cool thing.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I know we talked about that a little more on like the Bloody Mary episode with the
Hmm.
mirrors being
Yeah,
portals.
exactly.
So
Ways for spirits to travel.
yeah, and it's so interesting when you look into it. This has to be like one of our archive addendum episodes.
That'd be a fun one. Yeah.
It would be. So now we're back at Missouri's like office, maybe her home if she lives in her office, whatever.
I
But
thought it was in, like, the living or the kitchen of, like, the place they were in. That's what I thought. That's the way I looked at it. I don't know if that's right because they, like, were there. I don't know if they stayed there. They might have been back at the place, but I
I
that's
think
the way I looked at it, though.
I think they went back because they knock on the door
You're right, they
again.
do come back. You're right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm. Uh, but
For some
she
reason in my head, that was like it made sense in my head until you just pointed that very obvious logical inconsistency. Uh,
so she's giving them herbs put in bags, and then she
yes.
says they have to put them in the walls of the house on, like, the cardinal directions of the
Mhm,
house. Then she says they'll have to work fast because once the spirits realize what they're doing, things are going to get bad, but apparently those herbs will make the spirits go away.
mhm.
And she tells Jenny, because Jenny's like, "I don't know if I should just leave you all in my house." And she's
Yeah,
like,
which is like a totally valid concern.
yes. And she's like, just take the kids to the movies and it'll be over when you get back."
It sounds like they're gonna steal everything you own. Like,
It
this sounds like
does.
some weird convoluted way to just, like, steal your shit.
Yes. They're doing the long con.
One thing I made sure to, like, make note of this too while I was watching the rewatching the episode. She made specific note, like, because Dean asked, like, "What is this stuff anyway?" And she specifically says angelica root, van oil, crossroads dirt, and some other stuff. But those 3 things that she does mention are actually really she's right on all of those things, which I found really cool because, like, I already knew this, but, like, when I did more research into it, it also lined up with this too. In folklore, angelica root is commonly associated with, like, the divine, and used as a shield against negative energy or for purifying places and people. It's said to be to help people open their third eye chakra, which is commonly associated with connecting to like divine things and receiving messages. And in like plant medicine, it's used as an anti-inflammatory and to boost immune system. So it's like it's quite literally a purification root. And then van oil is a commonly used oil in spiritual practices for cleansing and is usually a in rituals used as a very versatile oil that can take the place of other things and amplify other ingredients too. And then finally, crossroad dirt is a thing that's used in folklore and in rituals for spells like transformation, change, or decision making. Because if you're at a crossroads, like the phrase "I'm at a crossroads" with something, you need help making that decision. You're not sure which path to take, stuff like that. But it's also used in spell work for protection and breaking curses. So all of these things are very good for cleansing an area, which so
Mhm.
it makes sense that she would use all of these as a spell bag for this.
Yeah.
And also she said, "We're gonna place these in the cardinal directions of each part of the home," which is also a very common thing when it comes to protecting, like, blessing houses or things like that. People tend to put things in the cardinal directions and, like, are called to the cardinal directions when using ritual. And that's usually where people put protective things as well to help guard against negative energy. So again, all of these things I found really amusing because this is like completely correct with the folklore. Granted,
Mhm.
in the actual show, they do an awful job explaining any of it. They kind of just like gloss over it, like
Yeah.
Angelica root, Van Oil, Crossroads dirt. We're gonna put it in the four corners. Boom, done. It's gonna fix everything. you know. So they didn't do a good job explaining it in the thing, but if you know anything about it, it's really interesting that they actually they did their research on this one, which is cool.
They did. I do wish it was in the script a little more.
I mean, they
Um,
did enough because they're all correct. Like this is how you get rid of negative energy like that. So like yeah, they weren't wrong. They didn't like not say that, but it's just like yeah, it's one of those things where this is very cool how in depth they got on this one.
yeah, for sure. It is. At least this wasn't a continuity error.
hmm Or like one of those things like that's never used for that ever.
Yes, exactly. So now we see, them putting the bags around the house. The most notable one is, like, behind Sam, we see a lamp moving, and
hmm
then behind Dean, cabinets are opening, and the sidekick gets pushed against the wall with a dresser.
Spirits must have figured out what was going on, so shit's hitting the fan.
Yes. And Dean gets a knife thrown at him, but he ducks behind a table,
I love
and
this shot because, like, it first of all throws the knife at the cupboards and he dodges it and hits the cupboard, and then you don't see what's gonna happen next, but he does. Like character actor or his actor looks at it like, "Oh god, what's gonna happen?" So he moves the table up, and then immediately it shows the shot of him behind the table with knives just piercing the other side all the way through, which I was like, "That's such a cool shot." Even, like, the lamp is also a really cool shot.
Mhm. It is, I like the effects in this one. The Sam is now getting strangled by the lamp cord,
Yeah, I like how the
and
cord kinda comes up behind him like it's almost like a snake or something for a moment, like, kinda, like, dancing around a little before it actually goes for the choke.
yes. And then Dean, saves the day. He runs in, gets the cord off of Sam, and then he kicks the wall and puts the herbs in there.
Well, that's actually he kicks the wall and puts the herbs in first, and then the cord loosens around his neck, and he's able to get it off of him. He's, like, choking out, and he's like, "Sam!" So he kicks the hole in the wall.
And then we see a very weird special effect of like
Yeah.
bluish white light leave the whole house.
Yeah, it was, like, very much, like, obviously, like, a cleansing thing, like, "Hey, this problem's done," but it was just like, "Whoa, that was bright and weird."
Like that never happens again.
Yeah.
But
Kinda
okay.
like the one, ghost bursting into flames and, like, the skull appearing and all that. Where it's like, "That's not how ghosts go away ever again."
No. So now Jenny gets home and her house is destroyed.
Yup.
And Sam says he's sorry and they will pay for it. And Dean looks at him like, why would you ever say that?
Uh-huh.
But the sidekick says not to worry because Dean will clean up the whole house. So after everything is cleaned up, they leave. And Dean is such a gentleman and helps Missouri down the stairs.
Real
Uh,
quick too, I thought this was very funny, going back to Missouri being hilarious with Dean. When she says Dean's actually gonna clean it all up, he, like, looks at her, like, weird, and then she's immediately like, "Don't you swear at me, boy."
yes,
I'm
that's
like,
funny.
that's hilarious," because he just, like, looks like, "Really?" Because he's like, "I didn't even get to swear it. I didn't even get to swear and you yell at me for it,"
Mhm.
which I
That's
just love
true.
that.
At this point, though, there is 10 minutes left in the episode, so it's not over yet. So we see Jenny now in the same blue pajamas that Sam saw in his dream. So we know something bad is coming. Her bed starts violently shaking and she is screaming. I'm not sure how they can't hear her because they're literally right outside her house, but they
Yeah.
can't. And Sam is just saying he has a bad feeling, and Dean is like, "I could be sleeping in a bed right now."
Mhm.
And then Sam sees her at the window, like, banging on it, asking for help.
Yeah, literally what his dream was. That's not the beginning of the
Mhm.
episode. Um, which I put a note here that again, with it comes to like poltergeist and hauntings that like that, the shaking of a bed is like another common thing, like trope of that. Of like just the bed violently moving around like that. And I put that it would make some sense at least to why the ghosts are behaving in this way, because negative spirits are said in folklore to like feed off of like negative emotions of people to like sustain themselves. So like fear is one, and that's a big one. So it makes sense that they would do things like moving things around and opening closets and shaking the bed, like because otherwise, it's like, why would they do that? Like, what's the point? Because clearly these ghosts have some kind of sentience to them because they just like actually physically attack them and like in like an intelligent way. So like that would make some sense as to what's going on.
Yeah, that's true. 'Cause, yeah, I was thinking about that as well, like, what's happening with this ghost?
Mhm.
Because the girl now sees the fire spirit in her closet again.
Mhm.
And Dean kicks down the door and tells Jenny to get out of the house, and she says, "No, my kids," and he says, "Sam's got your kids, come on," and she, like, follows him, and I'm like, "What parent would do that?"
I wouldn't be.
No, you don't know these people.
Yeah.
Like, you'd be like, "No, take me to my kids, I will get my kids out of the house, thank you.
Yeah.
Why are you in my house, actually?"
Mhm.
So Sam does get the kids though, and then when he gets downstairs, he says the same thing to her that was said in the pilot,
Mhm.
'cause he says Siri to take her brother and get out of the house and not look back,
Yep.
and the spirit then grabs him and pulls him into the house, and the
Mhm.
door slams shut. Dean
Mhm.
grabs a gun and bullets from the car
Mhm.
and then keeps trying to knock down the door, and then he axes down the door.
Yeah.
So more damage to Jenny's house.
Yep.
As Sam is being tossed around the kitchen, where are the
Yep.
neighbors? Okay.
Yeah, someone's axing their way into the front door of your neighbor's house.
I know I would at least be looking outside, and I'd be like, "What are they doing?
I would be going outside and be like, "Y'all good?
Do
Can
you
I help with anything? Like, what the hell's happening?"
do you need police? You need the fire
Mhm.
department? Why is a man
Yeah.
axing down your door?"
Yeah.
Weird. But anyway, the fireman spirit is now walking towards Sam. Dean comes inside and points the gun at the fire spirit, and Sam is like, "No, don't shoot. I can see who it is now. I can see her."
Yeah.
And then the fire spirit is Mary. A weird twist.
Yeah.
Why is she terrorizing the children?
Yeah, like, this is my big thing with this whole episode that, like, drove me nuts because, like, this makes no sense at all. Like, if she's there and she's a mother, right? She's a very loving mother. She's about to, like, sacrifice herself for her kids, blah, blah, blah. Um, why is she terrorizing this kid? Why is she, like, showing up to the I get that she's, like, trying to like, in theory, according to, like, what she does about this poltergeist here in, like, 5 seconds, um, she's clearly there to protect against the poltergeist, right? But
Mhm.
but that's not happening. The poltergeist is still terrorizing them. Every once in a while, she randomly shows up, but also, like, she clearly can turn back into Mary whenever she wants. So, like, why is she just like, "Hi, kid. I'm a fire spirit here to protect you," without like saying a word or like just turning to Mary and be like, "Hey, kid. I'm here to save you and protect you from the scary ghost thing that are happening right now." And then go like all Human Torch again. Like, why are you just always Human Torch and just like T posing in this person's closet? Like, what what are we doing?
Yeah, it's weird.
Like, it makes no sense at all. Also, like, why does she like if she's here to kamikaze for like the poltergeist, why is she just doing it now?
'Cause it's attacking her children.
So she doesn't give a fuck about the other kid? Like, she's just cool with just, like, being there as, like, a guardian, like, to, like, scare the shit out of the kid and not even prevent the stuff until her kid's there? Like, what is happening? Like, this makes no sense, and it drove me insane.
It doesn't make any sense. I agree with you. But so yeah, but when she appears, she does tell Sam she's sorry, and then she turns around and tells the thing to get out of her house and to let go of her son. Then she goes up in flames, and now whatever was in there is gone for real this time.
Which again, the boys once again came to a place, did literally nothing. Everything got resolved and they leave. Because the thing they tried before didn't work. So, like, they did nothing.
But they did get their box of stuff this time.
And they got, like, some closure with their mom, I guess?
No, because I'd be like, "Why is she sorry? I need to know why she's sorry."
And also, like, why'd she just sacrifice herself for this random like, did she really need to do that to save her kid in this instance? Like, what was it doing that was actively threatening? Like, I don't know. Anyway, like, keep going before I just continue on this for, like, another 2 hours.
Right. So she tells the psychic Missouri tells Sam that his mom destroyed herself to cancel out the energy of the poltergeist to save her
Also,
boys.
how'd she know this?
Well, I
She
guess it
wasn't there.
well, probably from what they told her. You're like, my mom, who is obviously a good spirit, went up
Yeah, I
against a bad
guess.
spirit and now she's gone.
I guess.
She tells Sam she doesn't know what's happening to him, but then tells them to not be strangers. And she says, "See you around," like she knows, but she doesn't because she did what Jeffrey Dean Morgan did and booked a reoccurring role on Grey's Anatomy instead.
Yep.
So her character was originally supposed to be their mentor while dad wasn't around, but since she left the show, that opened the door for Uncle Bobby.
Which, thank God that she did take this. Like, no offense to her, she was fine. I didn't I don't think she would have been remotely as good as Uncle Bobby ends up being as a character. I think Uncle Bobby's perfect for this type of show, and his actor did such an amazing job feeling like a real person too. And like I didn't really like, Missouri's, like, "I'm kinda spacey, but I also, like, know everything" vibe. Like, it's just not as interesting as to me as, like, Uncle Bobby. So I'm very happy that Uncle Bobby got to come in because of that.
Yeah, me too. I like his character a lot.
Mhm.
But now this part of the episode is probably the most frustrating, and it's the very end.
Yes,
The
I have another
psychic
rant about this too.
the psychic goes back to her house, and you think she's talking to herself because she's like, "That boy has very powerful abilities, blah, blah, blah."
Mhm.
Then she's like, not sure how he couldn't sense his own father was in town. And then the camera shows John right there in her house.
Yeah.
And she says, "Why won't you talk to your children?" And he says he can't. He has to know the truth before he talks to them again. And then the episode ends.
'Cause this is just makes no sense. Because also, the way that she says that, like, he couldn't sense his own father implies to me that he was in the house when they came over. That is the way I read that, was that
Or
he
she
was
knew
there,
he
like,
was
upstairs or
there, or he was in town or something.
that's what I mean, but I feel like that means, like, he was there.
Mhm.
And, like, that's, like, frustrating, and also, like you said, he's in town with them. Your son just called you saying, "Please, we need you. We want like, please talk to us and help us." And you're gonna be like, "I can't because I need to know the truth." Like, truth of what? What killed your wife? Like, sure, they can help you. They're literally looking for the same thing, and you know that. Like, what are you talking about? This makes no sense at all, and it drove me insane. It'd be different if he was, like, in a different state doing other things. Like, he's right there.
Yes. And
Like, he
he could at least give them, like, some kind of sign that he's not dead.
I mean, he updated the voicemail. That's a pretty good sign he's not dead. But I'm just like, "This is ridiculous." Like, what are we like, this is like it was just so frustrating because to me, I'm just like, "This isn't even like a good plot cliffhanger or anything." It was just, "This is not a good plot point." I was like, "That's stupid." That just makes me hate this character. Like, I just actively dislike John as a character now. That's all this, like, scene has done. I already wasn't liking him much. Now I really don't like the dude.
I mean, John is not a good guy. He's definitely not a good father.
But he's supposed to be painted as, like, that's what they're trying to do, though, is make him, like, this, like, troubled, but, like, ultimately a good dad, right? That's, like, the point of all of, like, the conversation between him and Sam,
Mhm.
or Dean and Sam about this. But, like, that's crazy that he's, like, really right there, and he didn't be like, "Hi, kids."
Yes. Nothing.
Yeah, and, like, "I need to know the truth before I talk to them again." Like, why? And what truth? Like, what are we talking about? Like, come on. They're trying to figure it out too, and you know that. If you're
Mhm.
keeping any kind of track on them, you know that.
He's annoying.
Crazy. Crazy. Like, the only thing I can think of is literally he joined Grey's Anatomy, and they're like, "Hey, we gotta, like, not have him on the show very often."
Mhm.
Like, because this storytelling makes very little sense.
Yep.
Alright, my rant's done now.
Okay. Well, that's the end of the episode. And we go to our crime counter. They only committed one crime, and that was impersonating a cop for like
Yeah,
five
as they do.
minutes. Yeah. The 3 years in jail per usual.
Mhm.
So for our episode review, did you update your stuff?
Yep.
So for story and pacing, we both gave it a 4. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, I enjoyed this episode a lot. I thought it was very tight, very like it makes sense. All of it was good. Even like the whole everything's saved fake out 10 minutes before the show's done. They did that well. Like
Mhm.
overall, liked it a lot. Very good job.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty good. The monster lore, I gave it a 1. Um, you gave
I
it
gave it a
2.
2.
Mhm.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I felt like there wasn't any monster lore. All the lore we know is because you looked it up and told us.
Yeah. I gave it a 2. I gave it a 2 because while that was basically the main reason why I gave it such a low score was because they didn't really talk about it much. They just like poltergeist, ghost
Malevolent
spirit,
spirit.
portal. They, like, said a bunch of buzzwords, said a bunch of things that, like, kind of vaguely are, like, supernaturally kinda like that, but, like, didn't really make a ton of sense. And then like the whole fire spirit thing drove me insane and like made me bump that down a lot. So I'm like, that one just didn't make any sense. But I gave him a two because the stuff that they referenced was very accurate and very good. But like in the actual show itself, they did not explain it at all or did not like give you anything really.
Mhm. For character development, we both gave 3.
Yeah.
I feel like it's in the middle of the road, like, we find out, like, Sam's dreams are kind of intensifying,
Hmm. Yeah.
and their grief about their losing their mom.
Yeah. Like it was a moderate, normal, like average amount of advancement of the main plot points and the relationships and stuff.
Mhm,
So it's
mhm.
fine.
Visuals and direction, we both gave a 4. They were very cool camera shots.
Oh yeah, like we talked about,
Um
there was like 3 of them that in particular that I really enjoyed, like the table flip knife scene, the camera in the closet, and like the
Mhm.
even like the cord was that was really cool. Like a lot of the effects of the poltergeist was really cool. Even like the lock on like the fridge, like all of the poltergeisty stuff was very good, well done. I thought.
Yeah, and the practical effects, like, all the effects were practical effects, so they were all good, like, the person on fire was literally somebody in a fire suit.
Love that.
It was like a green screen fire suit thing,
Yeah, love
and,
that.
like, the, playpen coming apart, that was, like, the screw was already loose, and they had it, like, on a wire so they could pull out the
Oh, cool.
screw, and then it would fall. So yeah, all of the practical effects were very good this episode. Unlike
Yeah.
Bugs where we could tell.
Yeah.
Emotional impact, this is a big difference from us. I gave it a 4.
I give it a 2.
Yeah. So I gave it a 4 because we actually had a lot of strong emotions, especially you that you put your rants. Those are strong emotions. They left you feeling things, left me feeling things. Because like, our emotional impact category is, like, how it emotionally impacted us as viewers.
Yeah, but like it didn't emotionally impact me from like the way they told the story or like anything like that. The my strong emotional impressions, like what I'm taught, like my rants and stuff, were because like of frustration of like things not making sense. Like from like like a creative direction. Like they like the from like an outside perspective, like the story doesn't make sense. So, like, I don't
Mhm.
think that really is what I was interpreting our strong emotional impacts as, because,
Mhm.
like, that's just frustration about, like, them doing a mediocre job at certain writing things that I thought was, like, kinda bad versus, like,
Oh,
like, the actual emotional weight of this episode wasn't very strong for me. Like, I wasn't like, "Wow, I feel their pain. I feel their sadness. I feel their stuff." It's just me as like a viewer being like, I'm frustrated that this character is so bad or like that this
yeah.
thing didn't make sense. Like,
No, I totally get that. I actually do feel a lot of emotion, at least from Sam still, and
yeah.
even, like, Dean being so upset that dad won't, like, answer the phone, and he really wanted his help.
Yeah, that's why I didn't give it like a 1. I gave it a little bit for like those like the call with Dean was like the biggest one where I'm just like, "Man, I feel the sadness in his voice." And I like that did something for me, but like most of the rest of it didn't really do much for me. That's why I gave it a 2.
Mhm. Now for Salt and Sass, I gave it
Well, rewatchability first.
watch rewatchability, yes. I gave it a 3.
I give it a 4. I like this episode. Like I said, I rewatched it today, like a third time, and I enjoy it. It's very well written, really well done for the most part. Like it's really easy to turn your brain off and just watch it and be fun, have fun.
Mhm. That's why I gave it a 3. For me, it's just,
Hmm.
like, middle of the road. I wouldn't say no to watching it again, but, like, I'd rather watch other episodes.
Yeah, I like it, so I would watch it again.
Now for Salt and Sass, I gave it a 1.
Oh, I gave it a 2.
Yeah, while I do think the banter with Missouri was fun, I feel like it just wasn't enough.
That's why I gave it a 2. The only thing that they had going for it was Missouri and Dean. Like Sam and Dean had no really quips with each other, nothing like that. No one else in the entire episode really had any quips with each other or like fun banter with each other. It was literally just Missouri twice. So that's why I
Mhm.
gave it a 2.
So my average score is a 2.86 out of 5.
Mine's 3 on the dot.
So our combined score is a 2.93 out of 5.
Yeah, so let us know what you think on all those categories and what your overall scores would be, and
Mhm.
see how they compare to ours. Like, do you think it's a better episode? Do you think it's a worse episode? Are we pretty on the money with you guys? Let us know in the comments. Anything else you would like to say about this episode?
Nope.
Well, then, that brings us to the episode of season 1, episode 9, Home. Thank you all for joining us this week as we visited our childhood home. Next week, we're visiting an abandoned asylum to see what runs amok there. And whenever you're ready, see you in the archives. Bye.